Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Allie.
And this is But Have You Tried from the David A. Howe Public Library.
Dun, dun, dun. I know we have actual theme music, but I just feel like I have to hype it up.
And I think those jazz hands really added a lot to it. It's a musical episode today. We got 2 musical episodes in a row.
I know.
They're sort of neighbors, right? The High Kings, the Rolling Stones.
That's true.
The same,
the same area of the world.
Region, So
basically the same thing.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure they would really appreciate us saying that. But we are going to be getting into the Rolling Stones a little bit today. But first, I have a musical/allergy medication story to tell you.
I'm so excited. I don't know where this is going, but I'm ready for it.
So, as we've established in past episodes, you have an unhealthy reliance on off-brand Zyrtec.
It's true. It's true. I can stop anytime I want.
Allie was recently a presenter at a library conference, and one of the keynote speakers was talking about things, and she mentioned using over-the-counter medication too much, and we shared a look because,
I felt a little called out.
I didn't.
She
put her
did
up
not
to it.
specifically. I don't think she specifically mentioned allergy meds.
She didn't say allergy meds. No.
She talked about like pain meds,
over-the-counter kind of
antacids,
stuff.
that kind of stuff. But I did feel a little called out.
I mean, I have Tums wherever I am, so I think we both were guilty of that. But
I am scared of taking Tums now because there was a period in high school where I felt sick all the time, and I took them like constantly.
Yeah.
And it definitely wasn't helping because I'm pretty sure it was anxiety and not my actual stomach. But now I just strongly associate Tums with like feeling horrible and anxiety. Yeah.
Wouldn't Tums still help though?
They did help a little bit, but they didn't help enough. And I did have an unhealthy reliance upon them.
Okay.
It was I feel like it was more of a placebo, honestly. It was like, if I take these Tums, surely I will feel better.
Well, anyway, this past Sunday, we were going up to Hammondsport to the Point of the Bluffs Vineyards to see Ben Folds in concert.
Okay.
And I have been having terrible allergies, as we've discussed. And so we're walking out, and I was like, I should take an allergy pill. And I couldn't find the ones that I is expected to take. So I found another off-brand ones that we had in our house. And I don't think I'd taken before. I didn't think anything of it. So I popped these 2 pills. Forget about it, right? So we drop our son off with his grandparents, and then we're driving to Hammondsport. And I'm just like, I am so tired. I don't know what. I'm like driving, and I'm like literally, I could fall asleep. I don't know what's going on with me. And I'm like, did I stay up too late? No. Like, did I sleep fitfully? No. Like, I don't understand this. And so we're having lunch in Dansville, and we're sitting there, and my wife was like, you are so spacey. What's happening to you? And I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, the allergy pills.
Oh, no.
Because they must have been, I think they were like off-brand Benadryl.
That makes
it wasn't
sense.
like a non-drowsy kind of thing.
It's
and
dangerous.
It hit me like a freight train.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
I was just like, I don't know. I felt like I had pulled an all-nighter and was trying to push through. And
That's
even
horrible.
into the concert, I was still kind of like my eyes would close, and I'd be like, Ben Folds. So the concert was really fun, but
good.
I was
That's
a little drugged for
rough.
the first part
That's
of it.
rough.
So
yeah, that's definitely part of my reliance on off-brand Zyrtec because I know that it works and it doesn't
It's
make
a
me
non-drowsy
sleepy, and so I'm
situation.
scared to try and take anything else.
Yeah.
One time, I want to say it was like during break. One of the years I was in college.
Okay.
I was home, and I forget if I had a cold or like there was something going on, and my mom recommended I take Benadryl. And I had not taken Benadryl, I think, since she had like force-fed it to me as a child.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like I didn't really have a lot of experience with it. So I took it, and I was like, all right, we'll see if this makes me feel better. I think it did make me feel a little bit better. But then I started being like, man, it's only like 8 p.m. I'm just exhausted. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And so I like went to bed unreasonably early. And then the next day I was like, wait a second. So yeah,
now you've learned.
Now I'm cautious of Benadryl.
The Ben Folds concert was very fun.
Good.
It was a 2-part thing. It's the Paper Airplane tour that we saw, and the first half was like, just a tight set of regular things. Although it's an outside venue, and we were under a big tent, and there was like an insane rainstorm.
Oh my gosh!
It didn't last too long, but it was like water just like gushing off the sides of this tent.
And did that add to the experience or subtract? Because that can really go either way.
Well, a little bit of both, because the atmosphere was cool, but they closed all the flaps, and so then suddenly we were just in like a moist hot box, and that was not so fun.
Yeah.
But it leveled out. But he came out, and improv playing through Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
That's
It's
fun.
a, Burt Bacharach like classic.
Yeah.
So I always like when that happens at a concert because like I'm sure he's never played that before live. So it's just kind of a fun thing to hear. But the first half, other than Raindrops, was this tight set that he has planned. And then an intermission out in the sort of like the lobby area, you got a paper airplane and you wrote a request on it. And then at the start of Act 2, everybody just hucked them up on the stage. And then he would just get up and pick one up, and whatever it
Oh my
was, he would
gosh.
play it.
That's so cool.
Most of them he just had in his head, but there were a couple of deep cuts, and he had songbooks that he pulled out and stuff. But so pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm always so impressed when you're at a concert and someone requests a song and the band's like, oh, we haven't played this one in 10 years. And
I
then
know.
they just like
Then
play
they
it
just do
flawlessly.
it.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, how do you,
Yeah.
how?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I was at a McCartney concert, and he played Something, the George Harrison song Something, on a ukulele. And while he had the ukulele, someone in the audience yelled Ram On, which is like a deep cut from an album called Ram from the very early 70s. And he just whipped it out,
Oh my
and just like
gosh.
played Ram On, like without any sort of, and that's like, I played the ukulele as we've discussed.
right.
And the chords of that are insane. Like I could never. And he just like sat down, hadn't, looked at that song probably in decades and just
Wow.
improved it. But I mean, he's Paul McCartney, so
Yeah, that's fair. That's
What do
fair.
you-
Yeah,
what
that
do you
stuff always
expect?
fills me with a mixture of like admiration and just like anger. I'm
Oh.
like,
Yeah.
it just makes me mad that there's
Yeah.
people who can just casually do that, and
Yeah.
I can never.
what a
not
spiteful
gonna
little
happen.
drug
I
addict
know.
you are. I can't believe it.
Truly am. I feel like I don't know. I seem so like, like I'm small and I'm happy and energetic and blonde and everything, but
Yeah.
I truly am just a little rage monster inside.
Yeah. I see that.
Yeah.
I see the darkness that pokes through. Speaking of Paul McCartney, did you know that Paul McCartney and John Lennon gave the Rolling Stones their first big hit with
did
I Want to
not.
Be Your Man? Yeah.
Huh.
It was a song that they'd written that they hadn't done yet, and they gave to the Rolling Stones, and the Stones released it, and it became, I don't know if it was the number one, but it was like definitely the one that got attention on
That's
them
cool.
the first time. And then Ringo does it later on a Beatles album. And then again, McCartney, after coming out and calling the Rolling Stones a blues cover band, which people weren't happy with.
Oof.
But then, I guess they made up because Paul McCartney plays on the track Bite My Head Off on Hackney Diamonds, which is one of the ones we're going to talk about today. So it's...
Well, wasn't that like probably decades later at that
no,
point?
no. The
No, it
blues
was
cover
recently?
bands thing was like in the last couple of years. He
Oh.
said that in some interview.
Oh.
I don't think he meant it to be quite the dig that it was, and I feel like the Stones kind of took it for how he meant it.
That's good. That's good.
That's certainly how they started as a blues
Right,
cover band.
yeah.
I mean, their break-in was like introducing like blues to England when it was like, they're doing like Chicago blues in England in the 60s, which was like not super common. So, but I'm not here to tell you facts about the Rolling Stones. You got to tell me.
Yeah, okay. I got some facts
Hit
about
me.
the Rolling Stones.
Let me hear it.
The Rolling Stones are an English rock band
True.
formed in 1962.
Okay.
I didn't realize, I know that I'm like, a wee small child.
Sure.
But I didn't realize it was that long ago. And
Yeah.
it's kind of insane to me that they're like still doing stuff.
Yeah. And see, and that's so I've seen the Rolling Stones live twice now, once in 2019 and one just last month. And that's what's so surreal about it, because like I've seen McCartney and I've seen Ringo Starr, I've seen Bob Dylan, like I've seen these people, who are just like legends from that era. When you see Paul McCartney, like I always have a sense of like, oh my gosh, it's Paul McCartney. But you're not watching the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like you're
Right.
watching Paul McCartney.
It's Paul McCartney.
But when you go to a Rolling Stones concert, and especially in 2019 when Charlie Watts was still alive, it's like, no, these are just the Rolling Stones. These are the Rolling Stones from 1962, and here they are, like, singing Rolling Stone songs. And
That's
it was
crazy.
like, I don't know, especially that first time, but it hit me again just recently that it just feels like you're traveling through time, because
Because
it's
the
like
60s was like, what,
it's the
60
Rolling
years
Stones,
ago?
you know what I mean? It's like there they are. There's like Mick and Keith singing into the same microphone songs they wrote in the mid 1960s, and they've just stayed consistent. That's what's so crazy to me.
Yeah,
Like
it's truly insane.
when I put together a Rolling Stones playlist, I'm always shocked to be like, what, that song is from the 90s? How can that be? Or like that song's from 1978 when I thought it was like an original. They just sound the same, and not in a bad way. Like
Right.
They sound
Yeah.
like they just maintain that they are the Rolling Stones, and that really blows my mind.
That blows my mind, too.
Yeah, it's a very surreal to experience. So anyway, but go
Okay,
on, tell
more
me
facts.
more. Tell me more.
The band pioneered the gritty, rhythmically driven sound that defines hard rock,
Okay.
which makes sense to me when I read it.
Okay. All right.
You sound skeptical.
I'm a little skeptical, but they're always more of a they're always more of a jam band than like the Beatles or other things like that. I think
Yeah,
that
that's fair.
the Beatles, especially like the really early 60s stuff, still has sort of like links to 50s doo-wops and stuff because they were emulating like people that they loved, you know,
Right,
from that era.
as
And
you
that
would.
was a little bit more, I think, socially acceptable, where the Rolling Stones were playing dirty, you know,
Yeah.
as far as just like, let's just sit down and jam this out. Whereas the Beatles often had a polish, like particularly with their recordings.
Right.
So I think the fact that the Rolling Stones were like, no, you know, there's nothing soft about this. Like, we're just going to hit you with it. And it, you know, people, I mean, they got banned from like BBC and stuff because people were like,
That's
oh my
insane.
gosh,
Oh my gosh.
these ruffians, you know.
It's really funny, honestly.
Yes. Anyway.
Okay, the original band members were Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, Bill Wyman, and Charlie Watts.
Yeah.
And then over time, Brian Jones eventually was replaced by Mick Taylor.
Yes.
And then by Ronnie Wood.
Yes.
And there might have been another replacement that I missed as I was like reading the overall
Sure.
history. But I think that's what
No,
we
I
got.
think there are a couple in there that you could count, but I feel like those are the big ones. When I saw them in 2019, it was Ronnie Wood, Charlie Watts, Mick and Keith, and then it was Ronnie, Mick and Keith this last time because Charlie Watts died, I think, in
Right.
2020 maybe.
Yeah, I was reading that they kind of like went down to like the four of them doing
Yeah.
it, and then down to the three of them
Yeah.
doing it, with like maybe getting other people to kind of
Yeah.
like do a certain instrument or whatever
Mhm.
as needed.
Yeah,
So they started by doing covers of songs that they liked.
yeah.
And then once
Blues covers largely.
Blues covers,
Yeah.
yes. And then once they got the manager, Andrew Loog Oldham, is that how that's pronounced?
Sure.
It's like Loog in the middle.
Okay.
I was fascinated by
Yeah,
that choice. Anyway, in 1963, he encouraged them to start writing their own songs.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Jagger and Richards were the ones who were like doing a lot of the writing.
Yeah, and they I've been reading Keith Richards' book, and he talked a lot about how for a long time they would write songs, but they weren't like cool enough for the Rolling Stones, so they would like give them out.
Huh.
And so they were pretty successful songwriters, but they weren't writing for themselves necessarily.
That's
and
really
it took
interesting.
a while before they started like including, you know, their own hits, and then
Yeah.
of course it's largely that now. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
I don't know why, and maybe it's just my own perception because I just love the Beatles so much, but I feel like the concept of like Lennon McCartney is so iconic in a way that I feel like Richards Jagger is not. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know why.
Because
Like,
it sounds like it's sort of similar dynamic.
definitely.
So-
and much, you know, Lennon McCartney is 10 years and Richard Jagger's is like, you know, 60.
Right, which is,
So-
again, totally insane.
Yeah, I don't know why that sort of transcended pop culture, just the concept of that. But again, maybe that's just my perception, but that's certainly how it feels.
I don't know. Listeners, you can leave a comment and tell us
Yeah.
if you think you agree
Yeah.
with our assessment here. Okay, they had 31 studio albums, which is
Yowza.
yes,
Yeah.
Yowza is correct. 13 live albums and 28 compilation albums, in
Okay.
addition to a bunch of singles, extended plays,
Yeah.
box sets, and I know not what else.
Well-
Which when I saw that, I was like, oh, I like barely have even dipped a toe into
Yeah,
the Rolling
for sure.
Stones. Like there's
For sure.
so much.
Well, and it used to be like, you know, at that time, it was like the singles were meant to be like now modern and for the last, I don't know, say 30, 40 years, singles are pulled directly from the album.
Right.
You know, so like this song is from this new album, so buy the album and you can have it all. But back in the day, particularly with the Beatles and the Stones, a lot of those singles were just singles. They weren't on any album. You know?
that's kinda cool.
And so then compilations would come and collect all the uncollected singles.
That makes sense.
And both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones had American versions and British versions of their albums in the beginning. So there's it's confusing to follow the discographies of both bands
Yeah,
because of
that's
that.
fair.
Sometimes they'd have the same name, but would do different albums. So it's just a very
I always think it's a
convoluted.
very interesting choice when any kind of like creative thing, there's like a British version and
Yeah.
an American version. Like I recently read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Hallie Jackson.
Okay.
And I realized partway through reading the book that it's the American version and there's actually a British version.
Oh.
And for the most part, it feels very American. You wouldn't know
Yeah.
because they did a good job.
Yeah.
But here and there, I'm like, that's not how we use that phrase
Yeah.
in the States.
Right.
But I'm like, why? I don't understand what about a little YA murder mystery
Yeah.
needs to be Americanized. I
Well,
feel like
the Beatles' Capitol albums take a lot of flack now. Like people don't like to listen to them and stuff. But when you go and listen to them, it's really clear what they were trying to do. They were trying to give them more of an American sound. You know, they made sort of it's not true stereo, but they make them sound stereo by sort of adding reverb and doubling things up and stuff. And they just have a bit more of a jammy vibe than the British counterparts, which is interesting. And the Stones, had a similar experience where their records would be resequenced or put out in a different way, specifically to appeal to an American audience, which, is odd, I guess.
I always find that really intriguing.
Yeah.
Like I guess I wonder how people make those decisions. Like, what makes something more appealing to an American audience?
Yeah.
What choices? What changes?
Well, I mean, in Keith Richards' book, he was talking a lot about, like, okay, you can make it in the UK, but, like, making it in America was, like, the thing, and how they sort of broke into the American music scene and stuff was such a big difference. And it was such a benchmark for, like, okay, well, now we've really made it, like, being in the US. So... yeah, I that's a strange cultural thing that is weird to me now, especially because I think there's such a melding of, particularly like actors and stuff. It's like, you just get a lot of UK and Australian actors.
Right, yeah.
And it's all just feels like it's muddled and doesn't really matter. But I think in the 50s and 60s, it certainly did. Bands like the Rolling Stones kicking off the British invasion, where suddenly it's like, oh, other places make music that's interesting, let's listen. And then it really changed, the music landscape, the rock landscape, and opened up this whole new world, really.
Okay, a few other facts.
All right.
Estimated record sales of more than 250 million,
okay,
making them one of the top selling bands.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think I could do better.
You don't think that you could beat the Rolling Stones?
No, probably not. They received 3 Grammys and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, which I'm not even quite sure what that is, to be honest.
Yeah. That always feels like a little bit of a slap in the face. Like they probably received that in like 1995 or something. You know what I mean?
It's like, well, now
you're done. You're over. That's it.
Yeah, that's fair. They're also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and both Billboard and Rolling Stone, the magazine, have ranked them as one of the greatest artists of all time.
Okay.
That's most of the facts that
I've
got.
Okay. So tell me, prior to this, what, like if somebody would have said, name a Rolling Stone song, could you have done it?
I don't think so.
Really? Okay.
Because we had that conversation when you gave me this assignment.
Yeah.
Last time, where you were like, have you tried the Rolling Stones? And I was like, no. And you were like, you might recognize a song or two, and you listed a couple, and I was like, oh, those ones. Yeah, those are Rolling Stone songs? Okay, I didn't know that.
This was disingenuous, is what you're telling me?
No, it was like,
you knew.
Like, I knew the songs. But
okay.
I did not know that they were Rolling Stones songs.
Right.
I just did like, oh yeah, I've heard this song at some point in my life.
That makes sense. Where did you start? What did you do? Did you follow instructions? Because I've been known to go rogue now and then.
I tried to follow instructions.
Okay.
I think I did a good job.
All right. So what did you do?
I started by listening to Beggar's Banquet.
Okay.
And I listened to that a little bit. I think I got like halfway through the album, because sometimes I play songs while I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
And then if I'm done doing whatever it is I'm doing, then I have to stop and go back to it later.
Okay.
And then I listened to Hackney Diamonds.
Okay.
And then I listened to the second half of Beggar's Banquet.
Okay.
Because I love to do things out of order. And then I did listen to a little bit of Live on Air, not as much of that. But then I tried to do some re-listening to the main 2 albums that I was assigned. And then like also some just general ones kind of come up when Spotify plays them.
Okay.
So that was kind of fun too.
So tell me, like, basically inserting Hackney Diamonds into the middle of Beggar's Banquet, did you notice a big change? Did it feel...
It did feel very different.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I feel like Beggar's Banquet felt very... I don't even know how to quite characterize it. I mean, it felt older. Like, not necessarily in a bad way. It just did. It felt more bluesy and more like folky, whereas Hackney Diamonds felt much more like what I typically associate as like kind of rocky. And so that was a really interesting contrast. Yeah. And I was expecting, because you said Beggar's Banquet was the more folky album, and so I was expecting that I would like that one better, but I think I actually liked Hackney Diamonds better.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, well, I had, because in the Keith Richards book, he talked about, thinking of that as their folk album and everything, and listening to it, I certainly get what he means. Mm-hmm. It's a different, the style feels a little different. And yeah, the emphasis on the blues is maybe a little higher, whereas Hackney Diamonds feels a little bit more straightforward rocker, and it does have modern sensibilities. Like some of the melodies and particularly the instrumentation, I guess like the overall production has a modern feel in a way that the others don't.
Which I think probably helps in terms of like being new to the Rolling Stones and also like, 24 years old. Yeah. That that one felt very approachable to me. Okay. And I felt like the guitar work and everything I felt like was really fun and kind of like, I don't know, I felt like it drawed me in and made me feel like, yeah, I want to like dance around while I'm cutting fabric on my floor in my house, that kind of thing.
See, I've enjoyed the modern Rolling Stones kind of stuff, like the 2005 album, A Bigger Bang. I don't think the reviews in 2005 were particularly good, but I sort of rediscovered it when they announced Hackney Diamonds, because I listened a lot to Blue and Lonesome, which was their, I think it was 2012, something like that. But it's all old blues covers. It's not anything original. And so I enjoyed that, but it doesn't, it's a cover album. It's not, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, and so when Hackney Diamonds was coming out, I was like, I'm going to go and dig into Bigger Bang. And I got a cool vinyl version of it and stuff. And I listened to it quite a lot, and I really like it.
Nice.
And it's weird, I think, for, again, a band that started in 1962 to have such a good, strong album in 2005, let alone 2024. I mean, it's
that's
crazy.
Insane, honestly.
So Bigger Bang I thought was really good, and I was really very happy with Hackney Diamonds, start to finish. I don't love the Lady Gaga one, but I feel like
which one was the Lady Gaga
Sweet
one?
Sounds of Heaven.
Oh, okay.
That's Mick and Lady Gaga. I don't love that one, but overall, I feel like it's a really good blend of up-tempo kind of stuff and more slow-down tracks, which I appreciate, especially if you're listening to it as a whole.
Yeah,
it's nice to have a break from just a ban-an-an-an like you need.
It is good to have a little bit of a slowdown.
Okay, so I mean, what did this do for you? Is this interesting to you at all? Or
yeah, I had a good time.
Okay.
I wasn't sure how much I would like it.
Yeah,
but I really enjoyed it overall.
Okay,
I would say.
All right. I really didn't know where you were going to go with this. I couldn't,
Well,
especially
I was trying not to
coming
give
out of
any
the High
clues
Kings.
also.
I just really, I wouldn't be surprised if you were like, not for me. I don't like it.
That's fair.
But
there are some songs, like there were some on Beggar's Banquet that I was like, all right, I'm not vibing with this.
Yeah.
And some that, again, would just like come up randomly.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, Spotify gave me Wild Horses like 4 times in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was okay with this the first time, but I'm starting to not feel it anymore now that you've played it over and over.
That's too bad. I do love Wild Horses, and I did hear that one live when I was at the concert most recently, which is really good. Wild Horses, I think, is one of their most covered songs, so that's probably why you're hearing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So much.
I was kind of surprised because I was like, I feel like usually the Spotify algorithm does a better job of not just like bringing the same one up over and over again within one listening session.
There's so many versions of it, like live
that
cuts
could be
and things,
why.
so maybe you were hearing
that's probably
things.
Why. But
I really like Stray Cat Blues from Beggar's Banquet. I don't know if you remember that one, but that's a fun one.
Yeah,
I also like
one.
Sympathy for the Devil. I mean, it's an interesting, like, to pick away at it theologically is also interesting. Like, if you look at the lyrics for that song, it's kind of like,
I thought
what
that
are
was
you
very
saying
interesting.
Here? It's interesting. And that was great live also. I really appreciate Beggar's Banquet. I don't think that if I was going to give you, this is my favorite album, it would be there. But I did think it would land for you a little bit better. So I guess I misjudged. I'm going to blame Keith because he said
it's all
it
your
was
fault,
folky,
Keith.
So.
It's all your fault. Well, I expected. I don't know. I expected to really like that one, and I liked it fine. But I did enjoy Hackney Diamonds more. What would you say is your favorite album, if you could pick? Which there's like apparently a zillion to pick from, so it might be hard.
I have Flowers on vinyl. It's one I've had for a long time, and I've always really liked that one. And I didn't realize until now, when I was looking up information about it, that it is an American album that is like sort of Frankenstein together from unreleased songs and singles. That were like individual singles. So it's not like a true album in the discography. It counts as a compilation. So I do like that quite a lot. But it has like Ruby Tuesday and Let's Spend the Night Together and some just like really classic ones. So I like that quite a bit. And I mean, that core in the center, Let It Bleed, Exile on Main Street, just really, really good. I like an album that is itself like a contained unit. Like the listening experience of hearing the whole album feels very like thorough and complete. And I don't know that that's always... I think in like the age of streaming and like pushing singles individually, the idea of structuring an album to be a complete unified listening experience, maybe not as high priority as it once was.
Yeah, I do feel like that's definitely taken a hit.
Yes. So when an album does that, I really like that. And I think that core, I mean, it's so basic of me to say those, but like,
I mean, things are
are
basic because they're good.
They
usually,
are classic and have survived up to this point because they are that good. I mean, they're really strong. But the modern stuff, Hackney Diamonds and Bigger Bang, are really right up there for me. It's hard for me to choose a favorite. But I usually, like, if there's a Rolling Stone compilations on, there's not a ton of skips in it for me. You know, I'm
Right.
kind of just like, yeah, let's do it. I like that the Stones. See, last week I said I hate when people compare the Stones and the Beatles, and I
You
keep
did.
doing
You
that.
did.
So I'm sorry, but you know, the Beatles after the first couple albums got into this place where they were writing music and recording albums for the studio. You know, it got to the point where like so many of their songs you couldn't really do live. I mean, you could do a live version of it, but it wouldn't be the song anymore because
Right,
it's
yeah.
so dependent on studio production. And I think the Rolling Stones, with a few exceptions, continue to like play as a working band always. And I just think you really feel that. Like you really
Yeah.
feel like I'm listening to this on album, but they could be doing it live, you know, and that's just the way it would go. So that's something that I think is really cool about them. They are like, to me, just the quintessential band. You know, they have different strengths and they pull it together in a way that is just a really like unified and satisfying sound, you know, which I think is very cool. I have some top tracks I could give you.
Okay, perfect.
She's a Rainbow. I think you'd like that one. It's weird. It's a very unusual melody. It's kind of fast and slow, and I don't know. It's unique, and I think that you'd enjoy it.
I'm writing this down in my notes so
okay.
I remember it.
Start Me Up is just classic. You know, just from that. Keith Richards has a unique tuning on his guitar where he pops off a string and changes things a little bit, and so these opening riffs that he does are unduplicatable. I mean, they're so unique, and Start Me Up really has that. You just need to hear one chord and you know exactly where you are, and Where I Am is here for it. So Start Me Up, high up there. Don't Stop is another one of my favorites, and that's a very late addition. So, you know, they keep doing that. And One More Shot is like 2000s. I mean, it feels to me like a classic. Beast of Burden, I really love. Bette Midler covered that, which is so weird, but Beast of Burden I like. Paint It Black is a classic, and that the chord structure in that is really unique. It's like minors and sevenths in a way that I think is just like, it's fun to play, and listening to it, it's like you're just trying to figure out like what is going on.
Yeah.
Wild Horses, I think is just, it's simple and it's ballady in a way that they don't often do, but when they do it, they really nail it. I
do really like the ballady quality of Wild Horses.
Yeah, Waiting for a Friend, You Can't Always Get What You Want. I mean, Tumbling Dice. I mean, they have these ones that just I don't know. I guess I don't like. I wouldn't say like Mick Jagger is this like classical vocalist, like he's just going to go out there and just like croon this ballad for you. But on songs like Wild Horses and stuff, he can, you know what I mean? So he's like this, you know, the vocal control I think is really impressive. And then, you know, I really like Mess It Up and Whole Wide World from the new album too. So I don't know, but I could have picked a million other ones. Those are just the ones that I was doing sort of like the first that come to your mind, and that's where I landed. What did you have a standout track from Hackney Diamonds?
I actually, so as I was listening, I made a little playlist of just ones that stood out to me.
Okay.
So I can give you my
Yeah,
top
tell me.
tracks from my
I wanna hear.
limited Rolling Stones experience. In no particular order, because this is just the order that they happened as I was listening. I've got No Expectations,
Okay.
Start Me Up,
Yep.
Beast of Burden,
Yeah.
Factory Girl, Satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
Paint It Black, Dreamy Skies, Angry, Whole Wide World, Mess It Up, and Driving Me Too Hard.
Ah, we had quite a few similar.
We
there.
did have some
That's
overlap.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty eclectic list, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, how do you think going forward your interactions with the Rolling Stones will be? Is it going to be like, if it comes in a mix, you won't skip? Are you going to, like, if the new album comes out next year, you're going to listen to it? Are you going to listen to Hackney Diamonds again? Choose any of those questions to answer.
I think I'll probably listen to them a bit more. I think I'll listen to Hackney Diamonds again, and I might also try and take a dip into some other albums that I didn't necessarily hit in this exploration.
Yeah.
I don't always have a good like system for if there's like musicians or songs that I like. I don't know how to always fit them into my regular listening, because it's like most of the time what I'll do is I'll just like go to an artist page like the High Kings and just hit play and let it go. And I feel like I don't always do a great job about, like, if I'm making a playlist or anything like that, remembering artists that I don't listen to as often, but like their stuff and putting it in. So that's something I want to figure out how to work on, but I think I would add a couple of these songs to some of my general playlists.
All right. I just got to get you a cassette, and then you can listen to it in your car. And
well, apparently we can't, because I don't know if the cassette player in the car works.
I'll teach you. We'll get you a head cleaner. It'll be great.
I truly don't know if it's that I couldn't get the cassette player in Caleb's car to work, or if it is truly just the cassette player is, literally as old as I am and it no longer functions.
It deserves its rest at this point.
Probably does. It probably
We didn't talk much about On Air, but that was the one that was sort of like a bonus assignment for you. I have the deluxe version, and that one's cool because it has 8 songs that they just did live at the BBC. They were never on an album. They never released them commercially. So the only way to hear the Stones do that would be if you were listening to the radio in the early 60s or on this album. So I appreciated that. And I think what's cool about it is that you hear them really raw in a really early part of their career. And it's kind of fascinating to go backwards and be like, this is just sort of like, this is just what they bring to the table without polish. This is just like show up, bang out a few songs, and like go have lunch. And I just think it's interesting to hear more as an artifact than like a let's listen to this music.
Yeah.
Because they are leaning a little bit more towards like late 50s covers and Chuck Berry and things like that. But the time capsule element of it. It's cool to hear, I think. But yeah, I don't think a new Stones fan, I think picking up Hackney Diamonds would be just fine. And it's interesting that for you, the modern elements of it made a more successful bridge than going classic right away. So maybe that's the way.
Yeah. I don't know.
Give it a listen and then see what else you find.
I feel like a lot of people who are fans of a band that's been around for a long time, if you tell them like, oh, I started listening to this band, I started with the newest album, they'll just lose it. They'll be like, how could you do this? You should never do this.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that's often what I do, just because if I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this artist, I'll like click on them on Spotify. Usually the newest album is what's going to come up.
Yeah.
But I guess it's nice to hear you say that you don't feel like Hackney Diamonds has that problem of like, this is so weird and different.
I don't think so.
Compared to everything else.
And it's funny because I had the same experience with the High Kings. You gave me the first album and you gave me the last album, and I much preferred the more recent one.
I thought that was funny. Yeah,
so
I was kind of thinking
maybe
about
that is. I mean, I guess here we go. We're the control group here at the David A. Howe Public Library, and we've
got to start with the newest album and work your way back.
Yeah, that you got to go new album and work back. So yeah.
So why did you choose the Rolling Stones for me to try?
Well, because I assumed that you would recognize the Rolling Stones, but wouldn't really have anything to go with it.
That's,
and honestly,
that's pretty correct.
Like,
yeah.
Doing the High Kings, they're not similar, but there's like sort of a frenetic energy to both of them, and I feel like the Rolling Stones, because they dip into folks and blues and stuff, to me just felt a little bit more like they might hit you. Like I could have said the Beatles or something like that, but I just felt like the Rolling Stones maybe had a better shot of like intriguing you.
That's fair.
So,
well, and I definitely am much more familiar with the Beatles than I was with the Rolling Stones before this. And maybe even than I still am with the Rolling Stones, given that there's like 31 albums and I've only listened to a couple of them.
Yeah.
So.
Good. I'm glad it was a success. And the concert was, I didn't tell you about the concert, but it was.
Now we need to talk about the concert.
So I went with my friend Steve Rudd in 2019, and we saw them, and it was really fun. The set list we were a little critical of because it was a lot of rockers with not many slow down, so it felt very... and I feel a little bit like that concert was postponed because Mick had a heart issue, and they postponed it for like a year or something. And that one came back like real hard and edgy. And the one that Weston and I saw in 2024, I felt like was just a better balance all around, and it was a nice assortment of deep cuts. Not a ton of repeats between the two concerts, which I appreciated.
That's nice.
But yeah, they started with Start Me Up, which was a great beginning. And it just, it got me. I mean, that first chord, I was like, oh my gosh, here we are. And they did Get Off of My Cloud, which is like a really early 60s mix. They did several cuts from Hackney Diamonds, which was cool. And Keith Richards sang one of his songs from that album. I can't remember the title of it, but it was one that they'd never performed live before.
That's cool.
Yeah. Tell Me Straight. That's the Keith Richards song that he sang.
Okay.
From Hackney Diamonds, yes. So both times we saw it, there was a little Keith Richards set where he like takes lead, which is cool. I like that they do that. I prefer the mix songs, but still. Yeah, and they pretty much, they just sustained it the whole way. It was cool. Like the imagery was cool, the good use of screens and everything like that. They worked the stage really well. And it was just an exciting, fun concert from start to finish. Like they just do a great show.
That's great.
So yeah, really fun. Really fun. And I was not hopped up on Benadryl, so I could fully enjoy it. You know,
That's good.
so
So this is the part where I'm asking myself, and I'm Googling, and it's loading, how old these guys are. Because
they've got to
I
be
feel like
80s,
if they've been
right?
doing this for 60 years,
Yeah.
Mick Jagger is 80, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't imagine just like playing a concert
Yeah.
at 80.
I know.
Good for them. That's
they're
all I
right
have
up
to
there.
say.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sure I won't. I mean, I'm sure I won't be playing a concert at 80,
Yeah.
but I hope at 80 I'm doing whatever my life equivalent of that is.
Yeah.
And thriving.
I hope you are
know?
too.
Yeah.
Knitting,
Yeah.
having soup,
Yeah.
you know, just living your best life.
Keith
Yeah.
Richards also 80.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
good for them.
I know.
I love to
I
see
know.
it.
Yeah, same. Well, we have an assortment of Rolling Stones things here in the collection that you can check out. We have the book On Air, The Rolling Stones. It goes through all of their early television appearances, which is it's more of a reference book than anything else, but it's cool to just kind of chart the progress. And the Keith Richards book is really cool. I mean, it's a really solid rock autobiography, and the story is told in a nice, compelling way that just sort of you feel like you're sort of meandering in a good way, through the Rolling Stones career and his early life. So those are fun too. So you can check those out.
Okay, so we're gonna compile our top tracks that we both just listed into a little best of What Have You Tried Rolling Stones playlist, and we'll throw that on some of our socials. So if you want to listen to Rolling Stones the way that Nick and Allie do,
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, well, Nick, I know you like the Rolling Stones.
I do, yeah.
But have you tried Leverage, the TV show from the mid-2000s?
Oh. It's like Timothy Hutton Leverage.
I'm pretty sure it's Timothy Hutton.
Oh, that's right. You don't know actors' names.
I don't know. Not unless they're a really big deal actor, and maybe even not them.
No, I never have.
All right.
So
I'm assigning you to try Leverage.
Okay.
I already put the first season on hold for you.
Oh, look at you.
I know.
Okay.
I'm taking initiative. I'd say maybe try the first 5 or so episodes of the season, unless you feel excited and want to go farther.
Okay.
A possible bonus assignment: the second season, one of the main actors isn't there, and she's replaced by Jerry Ryan from Star Trek. I thought you might find that intriguing.
Yeah, and actually, I know that Jonathan Frakes directs a lot of Leverage
I didn't
episodes.
know that.
Yeah.
See, and Jerry Ryan is one actress whose name I actually know.
You did.
You should be
pulled
so
that
proud
right
of
out
me.
there.
I know.
Oh, yeah, Aldous Hodge. I also really like Aldous Hodge. Okay.
Great. So if you want to, you could get the second season and watch a random episode or two from there.
Yeah.
The story, there is overarching story, but the episodes tend to be standalone enough that if you wanted to just watch a random episode from season 2 so you can see Jerry Ryan,
okay.
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
You wouldn't have any
now,
problem
what about
in.
Isn't there a sequel series that's on
There is.
right now?
I have not actually watched it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll watch that while you're watching the original stuff.
Is it going to be like the High Kings and the Rolling Stones? Is the new season the season that I will like the best?
That's a good question. You could try the new season if you want to.
But okay.
But I haven't tried it.
We'll see.
But I will try it.
We'll see how I feel.
Sometime in the next month.
Okay. All right. I can do that. So then in 2 weeks, we'll be back talking about all the things we are watching, reading, listening. We'll see if Allie's listened to any more Rolling Stones. And I won't tell you how I feel about Leverage at that point, but I'll be forming opinions. So
good.
Watch along with us. Leverage. We have the DVDs in the library system, so if you want to watch along with us that way, they must be streaming somewhere, right? I don't know.
They're on Amazon.
But no, I'm not going to support them.
Oh,
so
well.
DVDs all the way. Check out DVDs from your
DVDs
local library,
only.
everybody. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I got some Leverage to watch, so I got to go.
All right. See you next time.
Okay. See ya.